Thank you very much, Chairman. I welcome our nominee here today, and I want to thank our Tennessee colleagues for appearing on his behalf. They are extremely well regarded in the Senate, and their voices in favor of your nomination carry great weight, Mr. Ryder. As the nation's largest public utility, the TVA is uniquely positioned to lead the development of clean, reliable American energy. 3 years, 17 renewables provided nearly 20% of electricity generation in the United States. As wind and solar costs fall, utilities across the country, even in very red states, have invested heavily in both. The renewable energy industry has hit 3.3 million jobs, more than all fossil fuel jobs combined. The 5 states that get the largest percentage of their electricity from wind are Iowa, Kansas, South Dakota, Oklahoma, and North Dakota. In Texas, wind generation hit a record 15 gigawatts in December of 2016, at one point meeting 45% of the state's power needs. 18,000 megawatts has been installed, and another 5,000 megawatts is under construction in Texas. In Iowa, Mid-American Energy is planning to add 2,000 megawatts of new wind by 2019, on top of Iowa's already nation-leading investment in wind energy. Once that's all installed, 85% of the energy Mid-American generates will be renewable. Corporate America is going in on renewables. AT&T recently signed 2 agreements with Next Era Energy for wind power, one for 220 megawatts from an Oklahoma wind farm, and the other for 300 megawatts from a Texas wind farm. Wish Rhode Island had more land so we could get more of these wind farm projects. We have to build it offshore, which is a little bit more complicated. That is one of the largest corporate renewable energy purchases in history. So here is my worry, Mr. Ryder. I'll be perfectly candid with you. Notwithstanding the nationwide success of renewables, this administration seems, with unerring solicitude, to look only at the welfare of the fossil fuel industry. Our politics have been powerfully influenced by the fossil fuel industry. One means of that industry influence since the Citizens United decision has been unlimited spending and threats of spending by fossil fuel industry forces. As General Counsel at the Republican National Committee, I suspect you were in various ways intimately involved with that operation. Additionally, your background is a little unusual for someone nominated to be a director of an electric utility like the TVA. So I want to assure that you will be undertaking your duties at the TVA with no preconceptions and not as an agent for fossil fuel industry influence within TVA. I look forward to your convincing me that, if confirmed, you will be fair and act in the best interests of TVA ratepayers, including providing attention to environmental consequences and giving wind, solar, storage, distributed generation, and other technologies a fair shake against fossil fuel. I look forward to hearing your perspective on TVA's long-term plan and whether you will undertake to undo the ambitious renewable energy goals that the TVA set in 2015. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much, Mr. Ryder. Welcome. It's a little odd to even have to ask these basic questions, but let me just get them out of the way. Do you accept and understand that the carbon emissions from fossil fuel power plants are greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change?
Senator, climate change occurs, whether it's a result of carbon emissions or not, doesn't matter.
Do you think there's a question whether carbon emissions contribute to climate change?
I don't know. I'm somewhat of a skeptic on, I don't know the science that well on that issue. What I do know is that as a consumer, as a resident of the Tennessee Valley, I'm in favor of clean air and clean water. And so I think steps should be taken, as they have been taken by TVA, to make sure that our air is clean and our water is pure.
As a lawyer and as a member of the board, you may be asked to weigh in on legal questions that the TVA is presented with. There is, I think at this point, unanimous federal court precedent that when decisions are made that relate to carbon emissions, it is incumbent upon the agency to take into account the social costs, including pollution, that relate to those carbon emissions. I think we have at this point the Ninth Circuit, the Seventh Circuit, and the D.C. Circuit all arrayed on the yes, you must side of that with nobody on the other side, and a considerable array of district court decisions that have corrected agency action where they failed to take that social cost into account or where they presumed that it was zero. If you are presented by your lawyers a recommendation that decisions by the board need to take into account that social cost of carbon, will you follow their legal advice and will you accept that, or is there some reason why you would have difficulty with that?
Follow the legal advice of our counsel and follow the precedents that are set by the courts. As a lawyer, that would always be my advice to my client.
Yeah, it's pretty logical advice, isn't it? What would you suggest to us as markers that we could look to in your performance as a director that you have given renewables, storage? There's a new FERC storage rule TVA is going to have to react to. Distributed generation, which empowers consumers to take a much bigger hand in their own power control and their own economics. What would be the markers that we should look to that you've given those technologies a fair shake against natural gas or coal generated power?
Well, I'm coming here today as a resident of Memphis and West Tennessee, an area that feels that it has been underrepresented on the board of TVA, even though we account for, as I said, 10% of the total population of TVA and 12% of its load. We're concerned, and Memphis is uniquely situated in that it has one of the largest urban poor populations in the country. We have a lot of people who have trouble paying their light bill. So the TVA mission of providing affordable power is very important to my community. It is a very significant concern.
Facilitating distributed generation can be an extremely empowering way of addressing that issue.
So I want the board, I want TVA to look at all opportunities to provide low-cost power to the people of my community.
Including in that cost analysis,
including
the social
renewables.
Cost of carbon, as your lawyers will recommend to you.
Those in economics, I think, when I was taking my economics course in college, were referred to as neighborhood effects.
Yeah.
And those need to be taken into account.
Yeah, negative externalities, neighborhood effects, whatever, need to be taken into account.
Right.
Great. Okay. I appreciate it, and I'll reemphasize that Senator Corker and Senator Alexander have great respect here in this body. I had the pleasure of serving with my chairman Alexander on the Help Committee until I just vacated it to move to the Finance Committee. The legend in Washington is that the Finance is a more powerful committee, but moving away from Chairman Alexander is a step that one takes reluctantly because he is a man who likes to get things done and works well with his colleagues. So I appreciate their support for you.